So let's start with number one. Now I'm not going to go through 100 of these, or actually 150, which is another conversation, because one of the things that I came out of, walked away with, having put this together, was this understanding that there are 3 cycles in life, and each one of them is approximately 49 years long. And this chart was based, whoever came up with the precursors to this system, their understanding of the length of, the average length of a human life was 150 years, give or take. This is not a system based on a 76.2 year lifespan. This is a system based on a 150-year lifespan. And so from that perspective, we're falling very, very short of having enough physical time on the planet to actually manifest all the possibilities that the cycles say are implied for our development. We're actually having to do the equivalent of 3 cycles in 1.5. In 1.5, which is really crunchy. It means we miss a lot of the details. But let's just start with 1, and then we'll just run through as far as we can. Okay, so first year of life, 1-1. Lunar, Earth, okay? Earth squared. First chakra's name is Muladhara chakra, and the yantra for Muladhara chakra is a square, okay? It has many different meanings. 1, it means the foundation. 2, it is the place where the 4 directions come together. That's the Earth. Where do we find the first cross? Is in the north-south, east-west, up-down, transverse orientation that we have on the planet Earth to start with. All right, but contributing factors or ideas around the first year of life. Okay, number 1, the primary influences that are dominant in the first year of life are security and survival. Security and survival. In other words, everything that you're about, the first year of your life, is nothing but surviving to be 2. That's the job of a baby, a job of a 1-year-old. That's the consciousness of a 1-year-old, is to do everything that they can, use every faculty, every fiber of their being, every physical, every emotional, every mental, every possible trait or attribute they have is geared toward one thing, and that's to be 2. That's it. And 1-year-olds are utterly and completely dependent on their environment for survival. They have no self-maintenance facilities of any kind. They can't get their food. They cannot produce food. They cannot get to shelter. They cannot produce shelter. They cannot get help. They can't call for help any further than earshot. That's it. This is the range of their ability to communicate with their environment, is the strength of their lungs to broadcast. And that's also, by the way, why babies have the capacity to be quite loud. They have the capacity. Why? Because that ability to breathe and that ability to express their necessity with the vocalization is utterly and completely indexed to their survival. And since that's a necessary survival skill, they have to have it, so they're really good at it. Now, of course, sometimes we find it kind of irritating. I mean, it's not that the baby's crying, but does the baby have to cry at a decibel level that's as loud as a 747 jet engine taking off? Do they have to? I mean, is it really necessary? Okay. Well, apparently it is. Because otherwise they wouldn't have it. Babies don't have anything that's not necessary. No extra parts, no extra functions. What you see is what you get. They are WYSIWYG. Okay? WYSIWYG. Babies are WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. Okay? Now, we move into the second year. Everything changes. Whole new planetary dynamic comes on. Now, the whole first 7 years is security and survival, is the dominant influence, the peak influence. all of the first 7 years. Because at each point in the first 7 years, there's no guarantee of survival without external help. Although we know of circumstances where 7-year-olds survive on their own. We know that, but it is rare. Most 7-year-olds do not have the capacity to survive and thrive on their own. It's very, very rare. And that's a very bright and a very smart and a very crafty 7-year-old that can move out on their own or be left on their own in a circumstance of war or homelessness or disease or what have you and survive. But it can happen, and you'll see why in a minute. But for example, second year, Venus comes online, and the influence of Venus is dominant all of the second year. Okay? Now, at this point, Venus is water. And if we were going to go elemental, we'd say 1 is earth, okay, and 2 is water. Okay? But Venus comes online, and Venus, although the second chakra is traditionally called the sex chakra, it's also called the lower sex chakra, and it's also called the physical sex chakra. So what is the role of sex in a 2-year-old? What is the manifestation of sex in a 2-year-old? According to Wilhelm Reich, who studied this heavily, okay, and for 50 years, Wilhelm Reich said the sexual expression, there is one. He said there is sexual expression, there is sexual function, both hormonally and emotionally in a 2-year-old, and it is expressed as a gregarious, affectionate quality. A gregarious, affectionate, expressive quality, which what? Attracts people to the child. The function of sex in the 2-year-old, of the sexual function of the second chakra coming online, is to create an environment, a way of being in the child that will solicit, that will attract more people to it. More people to it. As a survival strategy. In other words, the more people who are engaged with the child in a healthy way, the more people, more than mom, the more people, the higher the likelihood the child will live to be 3. Because if all you have is the attention of one parent, well, how attentive is the parent? It can become an issue. How healthy is that parent? Be a huge issue. What's the financial status of that parent? Be a huge issue. And this has never been not the case. There's no time in history where this has never been not the case. The child, if possible, needs to attract the attention of the father. It needs to engage the father. If the father's not present, the child will attract and engage any person of any age that comes within its perimeter, that comes within its proximity. And it will do, literally, everything that it can to hold that attention. That is an attribute of a 2-year-old. Part of the reason why some people say terrible 2s is a misunderstanding of this. In other words, the 1-year-old is utterly and completely dependent, but not clingy. It doesn't initiate proximity. It doesn't initiate proximity, okay? The 2-year-old does. The 2-year-old will grab you and squeeze you and clutch onto you. And they're really strong. They're really strong. So if they get a hold of you, you like trying to peel them off your leg or peel them off your arm or peel them off your shirt. That's how you do it. You peel. You peel. Because see, mine, third chakra hasn't come online yet. So you don't explain to a 2-year-old why they have to let go. I mean, you probably do, okay? But if that's one of your slower moments and you're not really aware of what you're doing, that you don't really realize that you're trying to rationalize to a 2-year-old and you actually think that they're going to understand you, I won't hold it against you. Okay, but you want to work on that, especially if you ever have any opportunity to be around children, okay, young children. So second year expression of the lower sex center of Svadhisthana chakra is in this idea of attracting others into its perimeter and holding their attention. There is this gregarious, sometimes ebullient, I mean beyond happy, okay? We're talking a giggle that every part of every part is in the giggle. The toes are in the giggle. The fingers are in the giggle. The ears are in the giggle. Ebullient to a point of just releasing the bowels. Laughing so hard that you have a bowel movement right in the middle of it. Laughing so hard that you pee 4 feet up in the air because you're having so much fun. Joy at the body functions. Joy at the food. Loving everything. Love is an attribute of this second chakra. That's why Venus and Aphrodite both are the goddesses of love. Okay? So a 2-year-old has capacity to express what we interpret as love. And the interesting thing about it is it's unconditional love. So when you get love from a 2-year-old, you're getting the most pure godly love that you're going to get from another human being. People say that's why we like our pets, because our pets love us unconditionally. Guess what? It's also why we like babies. It's because they have a capacity to express love without condition of circumstance or judgment. They don't even know they're supposed to judge yet. So they don't do it. That's if they're in a healthy environment. Okay, if they're in a healthy environment. If they're in a non-healthy, then they'll be positive. See, each of these cycles can be either plus or minus. Each of these cycles can be positive or negatively aspected based on what happened before. So for example, a negative aspect in first chakra for a 1-year-old most likely is a reflection of the experience in utero. That's the before. That's the experience that set the tablet so that this is negatively aspected. And this is a 1-year-old that's full of fear. A 1-year-old that's full of fear, okay, and is reactive to the environment. That begins in utero. The 2-year-old, positive or negative, is a result of what they experienced in 1. And like dominoes, that's the way it goes. Now you don't get stuck. For example, if this is negative, it doesn't mean 2 is going to be negative, 3 is going to be negative, and so on. Because polarity can switch like that. Polarity can change on a dime. We call it Queen of Hearts. Let's have tea. Off with her head. After tea. You know, the flipping back and forth, that we call that the Queen of Hearts. It's the emotional part of the emotional center. Okay? And this is an emotional center coming online. And so you see flipping of emotions. A 2-year-old can be perfectly happy, as in everything that could possibly be anything, anywhere in the world relating to that child is perfectly good, and the child is happy. And 1 second later, be the most unhappy, most sad, most depressed, to the point of just crushing collapse. And then literally 5 minutes later be fine. Okay? As adults, it's kind of hard to keep up, to follow the trend. Because sometimes we can't relate what the child is expressing to what's actually happening around them. And it's because there's some delay. There's a little bit of gap in the processing. And that's because all the centers are not online yet. And so everything that's being interpreted and is being filtered through a relatively narrow definition set of all possible meanings. And so there's really a limited expression of that. And that's a limitation of the 2-year-old. Now we go to 3. Let's look at the 3-year-old, 3rd chakra. Mercury comes online. Traditionally, the depiction of Mercury is the messenger. Okay, the messenger. Messenger between who? Message from to where? Who's communicating the messages? What are the messages? Who's receiving the messages? Mercury is the intellect. And just like we learned in Ayurveda, the mind has both cognitive and non-cognitive functions. It's cognitive and non-cognitive functions. The mind is more of a processor than it is a generator. The mind is more of a cruncher of information, and it is more involved in comparing information than it is in generating information. That generative capacity of the mind comes on much later, okay? Because it's a reflection of other influences. 3 is the mind, is the intellectual part. So we have the physical part. Baby, what do babies do? Laugh, cry, sleep, wake, poo, pee, and eat. It's their life. 2-year-olds, guess what comes in? 2-year-olds play. 2-year-olds play. 2-year-olds will invent games that you didn't teach them. They will. And then also there are games that all 2-year-olds play at some point. Okay? There's the toe in the mouth game. You know? Whoa, toes. Blunk. The body part game, where they discover they have parts. And it's very interesting because one way or the other, whatever part they discover, they're going to try and find a way to put it in their mouth. One way or the other. Because one of their primary sources of information is their mouth. It's a source not just of milk when they're nursing the mother, because the mother is not just giving the baby milk when she's nursing. Okay, not. She is communicating with all of her faculties to the baby. She is mentally communicating to the baby. Most women who are nursing either talk constantly to the baby out loud, or they talk constantly to the baby inside. But one way or the other, the whole time they're nursing, there is a conversation going on. You guys might not know that, but it's actually, it's a fact. Mama's engaged. Even if the mother is like going to read a book while she's nursing, she's reading that book with divided attention because there's this communication at the tit, which draws her attention. She's communicating emotionally, she's communicating physically, she's communicating with thermal energy, with warmth and heat and electricity and magnetic field. She is communicating with all of her faculties. She's communicating hormonally. If she's happy while she's nursing, the baby's happy while nursing. If she's not happy, distressed, stressed, anxious, afraid while she's nursing, the baby may actually even refuse to nurse. Literally, even if it's hungry. It might, I was like, no, whatever you're serving, I'm not having it. Wham! Either get right or get me another boob. You know, these conversations at that level are real clear, right? They're real clear. But now something happens when third chakra comes along. This is the mind, but it's the physical mind. It's not the higher mind. It's the cognitive faculty. It's the memory faculty. Okay? It's a comparison strategy. In other words, at 3 is the first time we hear this phrase, mind. That's significant. Because up to this point, there was no mind. Because there was no I. See, I is a function of intellect. So you have to have one for everything that comes across as a reflection of that to manifest, which is ego and personality. So what do 3-year-olds start doing? 3-year-olds are the first clear expression of distinctive, unique, peculiar, particular personality in the child, where it is I, and I has mine. And there's pretty much not anything that's not mine. There's mine and yours is mine. Mine. okay? That's I, that's personality, that's the mind. That's a mental function. And this is a good lesson, we should never forget that. This whole conversation we have, I, this whole thing, mine, okay? It is not a reflection of truth as to who you are. It is a reflection of the function of mental function, ego, and personality. That's what the chart says. Okay, now we go to number 4. Okay, now we're going to the 4-year-olds. Now sometimes people say terrible 2s, and sometimes they say terrible 4s. Okay, and the reason why is something really interesting. 4, which is Jupiter, is the higher emotional center. 2 is the lower emotional center. 4 is the higher emotional center. Okay? And 4 is also transformation. We've already got through 3 chakras of the physical plane coming online. Think of it as each one's a different system coming online. Coming online. New system coming online. Okay? 4 is where those new systems are integrated. 4 is where the new systems are integrated, because that's the nature of 4. 4 is transition and transformation. That's the 2 triangles. 1 is for transformation. 1 is for transition. Okay, transcendence. So 4 is emotional, again, but the difference is, now it's an emotion with ideas. Emotion with ideas. 4, because it's the transition chakra, is about interpretation of things. So the problem with 4-year-olds is they think they know what things mean. That's the problem. Because of course they're wrong. Because they don't know anything. But that's not true. See, this is all intuitive, instinctive function. The problem with 4s knowing stuff is they know stuff they're not supposed to. And they don't have the buffers or the social or the individual consciousness to keep it a secret. So they display what they feel without filter. Now, we're couched and filtered and buffered and compartmentalized and justified and defensed, lawyered up inside. The 4, no. No. So a 4 will call you. A 4 will bust you. A 4 will reflect you in a way that you don't want to see. And you will try to convince them that they are wrong. No, everything's fine. Going, but it's not. It doesn't make sense. You tell me everything's fine, but obviously, according to everything I know, it's not fine. You don't look fine. You don't look happy. You look not fine. You look not happy. You understand? That's an issue. Terrible 4s. The reason they're terrible is because they clearly reflect their environment and they think they know what's going on and they have no buffers to prevent them from communicating that. So if you are positively aspected and receptive to the reflection, and saying, you know what, the status, this child's angst is actually a reflection of mine. If I want to help them, I have to be different. Now you take it that way, and now that's a source of progress. If you're resistant and you shut them down, you may cause injury to them. You may break them. You may break them. And it might take them years and years and years to re-kickstart this process that started right here. Maybe they don't get to make a connection until they're 11. Maybe they're 32 before they finally get it, that it's actually okay for them to clearly express what they actually see and what they actually believe. But if you could get the 4-year-old to comfort them and support them in that process, they're way ahead of the curve. Okay? and we go to 5, right? And 5, 5th chakra comes online, and 5th chakra is Mars. We say Mars is the god of war, okay? But in classical depictions from Greek mythology, Mars was Venus's lover. And according to Venus, he's a pretty sweet guy. So it's like they had the depictions of Mars, and laying up against a tree is his shield, and laying up over here is his sword, and strewn around the floor is his armor, and he's all like with Venus, as she's like putting a whammy on him, and which appears to be into it. It appears to be a reflection of his nature. So even though Mars is the god of war, okay, Mars is also the god of not war, because there's an alternative. And so what is the alternative to war? Communication. And that's why 5th chakra, Vishuddha, is the chakra of communication. Because Mars can be intractable, Mars can be violent, Mars can be pitiless and soulless and mental, emotional, in other words, just fixed in one emotion. But Mars also has the capacity to be something completely different. Has the capacity to be completely different. The difference is positive or negative polarity, okay? And what determines whether Mars is positive or negative polarity, believe it or not, happens way over here on 2, okay? In other words, it's the feminine influence that brings Mars into balance and brings out the communication capacity, the diplomat capacity, the presidential capacity versus the warrior, versus the patriarchal destroyer of civilizations. Okay? You know, Kali, they say Kali is the destroyer, the goddess Kali, Kali the destroyer. But they always leave out what she's destroying. You know, what does Kali destroy? Kali destroys illusion. Kali destroys illusion. The goddess destroys illusion. The god destroys what? The god destroys the world. The patriarchal energy destroys things. The patriarchal energy destroys buildings. The patriarchal energy destroys freedom. That's what the patriarch does. The goddess destroys illusion. So the positively aspected 2nd chakra has to be there in order for the 5th chakra to be positively aspected. And then it becomes, the throat opens. The throat opens, and what comes out? Song versus curse. Has capacity for both. Song versus curse. But we need to balance the lower 2nd chakra in order for this to happen. Another thing that 5th chakra is fight or flight. When you come into this cycle right here, H5, fight or flight. You know what? Here's something that 5-year-olds do that 4-year-olds don't. 5-year-olds will pack their booty and leave. I'm out of here. Literally. 5-year-olds will grab up their bear and their booty and will like hit the bricks. And I'm not coming back. That's it. I am out of here. Now, they don't quite have all the details. So they don't know that in like half an hour they're going to get hungry. And that somehow that's going to have some bearing on their, you know, and not coming back either, you know. There are certain things that they don't know. Like, they don't remember at that particular moment, remember it's fight or flight, that if they're in the flight mode, just after the fight mode, that they're afraid of the dark. So if I run away before dark, I don't want to run away after dark. And so I will come home, either, just before or soon. I won't go far and I won't stay long. Why? Because I'm afraid of everything. I don't know what anything is. I don't know how to do anything. I just know I'm out of here. Okay? That's fight or flight. That's fifth chakra. And it happens both verbally and it happens physically, and it actually happens. 5-year-olds literally do grab their blanket and march out the door with literally no intention of coming back. That's like, if you were to check in right then, well, are you coming back? No, I'm not coming back. Do you want a cookie? What kind of cookie? Really? Okay, well maybe. Okay, but all the potential's there. All right, now we go to sixth chakra. Sixth chakra is Saturn. Sixth chakra is, it's a rightful male energy. It's a young energy. It's a patriarch. It's ruled by the planet Saturn. Okay, and Saturn has to do with understanding. I mean, not knowledge, understanding. Saturn has to do with seeing the world as it really is. And so this faculty starts to come online around age 6, where we are connected to the world, we know our environment actually pretty well. We know our environment pretty well. We've gone through, we have people in our life, we have friends. See, by the time we hit 6, we're not by ourselves. By the time we hit 6 years old, we have a crew. Everybody does. By the time we're 6. And our crew is up to stuff. Mm-hmm. Our crew is up to stuff. We're not just like, what are they doing? I don't know. They're doing something. That starts to happen. Okay? And we know there's here, and we know there's out there. Okay? And we're curious about out there. And so 6-year-olds start doing research. It's very interesting. 6-year-olds start reading like crazy. They start research. They are scientists. This is the Saturn rules science. Okay? Scientists, science, sciences, acquisition of wisdom and knowledge, ruled by Saturn. So the 6-year-olds are our first evolution of the scientist. Okay? And they go after all of the sciences with more vim and vigor than any Nobel Prize winning person ever in the history of the world. Okay? Because they have less distraction. And they have an infinite capacity to absorb and store information. Virtually infinite. Virtually infinite. They can go through piles and piles of different kinds of information. If they're in a place where there's no books, that's okay. They learn everything there is to know about everything that happens around them in every direction. And that curiosity pulls them like a yo-yo. Sometimes they appear to be bouncing. And that's an issue for some people. It's 6-year-olds. The 6-year-olds are fast. They can zip. You got to scamper to well, hold up there. You want to cage them or leash them, which of course is illegal, so. if people who are really not very educated, not very conscious beings, will beat them up to slow them down. They'll beat them up, because guess what? That's what it's going to take. That's the only way you're going to slow down a 6-year-old, is literally tie them up and beat them down. Because if they're free, they're active. And their activity has a geographic range. 6-year-olds will travel a mile from home for no apparent reason. Because they were facing that direction. And it just occurred to them to go that way. And like a mile later, an hour later, or what, they're a mile down the road, involved in some shenanigans. And no perception of time. That's another thing about 6-year-olds. But this is the extrasensory perception. This is the supernormal experience. Life is magical. Life for a 6-year-old is magical. It's not still magical. It becomes magical. 6-year-olds are imaginative and creative, and 6-year-olds actually create entire worlds. They do. And all the cast of players. And infinite diversity. And they have no compunctions about mix and match and whether it even makes sense or not. 6-year-olds can fly. They can. 6-year-olds can fly. 6-year-olds can run as fast or faster than a horse. They can. 6-year-olds can drive cars, race cars, and fire trucks. Sometimes all at the same time. 6-year-olds can build anything. They can build a house. They can build a castle. They can build a skyscraper. It's no issue. Watch. Ta-da. They can build anything. Anything they can imagine. 6-year-olds can do anything. They can be anything. Because they have this perspective when Saturn comes online of being able to see that actually the universe is big. And the universe has lots of possibilities. And the future is wide, not narrow. See, we get old and critical and defined and we're like, oh, here's our future. I hope I could fit in. 6-year-old is exactly the opposite way. They're not looking at the keyhole from over here. They're looking at the keyhole from over here. And what's on the other side is really big. And they act like it. Then something magical happens. They survive to age 7. They've completed the survival task, the first one. And they enter the realm of the sun. And the sun is called flux. What is flux? Flux is when you take an ore, like gold ore, which is not pure gold, which has contaminants, which has earth and rock and granite and quartz crystal and whatnot that's in the earth with the gold. And then you crush it, and then what do? You put it in a furnace and you heat it up. And the gold melts at a different temperature from everything else. And it melts, and you pour that gold off, and then you heat it again at a higher temperature. And all the impurities that are in the gold float to the surface of the gold, like wood on water, iron, whatever, floats right to the surface. And then you take a little instrument, which looks like a spatula, and you just go, and you scrape the floss off the top of the gold. And every time you remove that little discoloration and that stuff that's floated to the top of the gold is more pure. And so there's this process of fluxing the gold to remove the floss, which is the impurities. And this is the process of 7th chakra. We picked up a lot of garbage along the way, okay? And we have to go through a process of releasing the baby stuff. It was all the baby stuff that is no longer going to serve us anymore. See, the stuff that we needed to be the master of the level of the year 2, the mastery required to be the avatar of the 3-year-old, the mastery of the avatar of the 4-year-old. All those skills, which were so useful and so necessary up to that point, guess what? Right here, we have to start cutting them loose. And right here, we stop being a baby. Because, interesting thing about 7-year-olds, 1 minute a 7-year-old is a baby. And the next minute, a 7-year-old is 25. Just like that. They still have this cycle back and forth into the baby. It is supposed to end somewhere around here, between 6, 7, and 8. All that baby stuff is supposed to go away. Okay? Although it's like casting off the shell of an egg and the bird, you know, emerges from. The shell is absolutely critical, absolutely necessary. The bird couldn't have survived without it. But there comes a time where it has to peck the shell apart and it has to climb out and it become a baby bird, which is a whole different thing and a whole different life and a whole different possibility than the life of possibility that that creature had while it was still inside the shell. And this is where that happens. It's right around here. And then we come to the second 7-year cycle, which is ruled by Venus, the lower sexual center. And the lower sexual center rules from 8 to 14 And the repetition of this cycle is the same as before. 8 is 2, 1. 9 is 2, 2. 10 is 2, 3. 11 is 2, 4. You always say the number of the 7-year cycle first. And the second number is the yearly cycle. That kind of is an easy way to keep it straight. So 12-year-olds are 2, 5. Now, I want you to think about a 12-year-old. Now think about a 12-year-old from this point of view. They're in the higher part of the lower sexual center. The sexual center of the sexual chakra, the physical sexual center, is alive and well and active and open and dominant. And what happens at 11? All right, now the heart comes online. So the 11-year-old is again becomes gregarious, again becomes heartfelt, like 11-year-olds express their heart. 11-year-olds really talk to you about how much they love you. They do. They'll tell you they love you like all the time. Just, I love you, I love you, I love you. Oh, I love you too. You know? But 11-year-olds start to express secondary sexual characteristics. They actually start to explore their parts. They actually start to explore other people's parts, other 11-year-olds or 9 or 10-year-olds or 12-year-olds or what. They start to explore each other's parts. They start to have interesting feelings, which are the biologic feelings as the organs begin to actually produce estrogen and testosterone at higher levels than they ever have up to this point. In fact, something happens right about here where the estrogen and the testosterone levels, boys and girls, spikes 200, 300, 400%. 200, 300, 400%. Okay? Now, culturally, we don't treat them any different, but we should. We should. We should have a whole different way of looking at the preemies, the pre-tweenies, the pre-teens. We should have a whole different way. Why? Because they are evolving sexual beings that have a heart, that are sincere, and feel love deeply. They have minds that are questioning. They have a virtually infinite capacity to record their environment. They know bullshit when they see it. They're also, if they're negatively aspected and they're in an environment where, for example, they learn how to lie as a life skill, they become facile liars. They can tell tall tales to cover what they don't want you to know. Okay? By the time we get to the 13-year-old, do you know, for most of man's history, in most of the world, that was the legal marriage age. 13. For most of our history as human beings, by the time we get to the end of the second cycle, generally speaking, we were considered good to go to set up a house, to have a job, to support a family, to run a farm, to build buildings, to engage in commerce, to have sex and to make children. For most of man's history, right around here was actually the age that people engaged. Okay? It's only relatively recent in history. And let me tell you how recent it is. Only 50 years. Only 50 years in the United States. You know, up until the 80s, the legal marriage age in North Carolina was 13. 13. My mom got married first when she was 15. This is in Texas, and it was legal. It wasn't statutory rape. She was at a legal age when she got married. Okay? I know people who are my age whose parents got married when they were 13, 14, 15, 16 years old. I do. Okay? It's only recently. When I was 17, the legal age in Georgia was 17. When I was 18, the legal age in Georgia was 18. When I was 21, the legal age in Georgia was 21. It changed from 17 to 21 over a 5-year period. 17 to 21 for a 5-year period. It had been 17 since the turn of the century. Since the turn of the century. Georgia's legal age during the Civil War. In other words, the average age of the average Civil War soldier who joined the Army to fight on the side of the Civil War was 14 to 17 years old. The average age, 14 to 17 years old. We have all these pictures from Civil War movies and these theatrical reenactments. Reenactors, by the way, tend to be older, okay? They tend to be older, okay? But if you actually look at the enrollment records, the draft records, the enrollment records, and so on, the average age of the Civil War soldier was around 15. All that fighting was primarily among teenagers. And we lost almost 500,000 of them within a 5-year period. Okay. That had an impact on everything, and an impact on our culture in every way. But if you see where it comes in. At 5, right here, communication, expression, being, we come into 6th chakra, and we have the cultivation of knowledge and being, because we now have experience with which to grow with. And when we hit 14, we are ready to rule the world. There's not a 14-year-old on the planet that doesn't think they know everything about everything. Literally. Not one. If you have a 14-year-old and they think they are not in charge, and or have the capacity to be in charge, parents are useless. What is the point of parents? Apparently just to keep me down. Your whole purpose in life, apparently, is to keep me down. Because I want to be free. All 14-year-olds, that's that transformation. They're going through this period of transformation and literally enlightenment. The difference between a 14-year-old and a 7-year-old is as if they are not even the same species. Literally, the difference between a 7 and a 14-year-old. 14-year-olds are gods. You get 13, 14-year-olds around 7, 8, 9-year-olds, and literally, we're talking Pied Piper. The 8-year-olds and 9-year-olds follow the 14-year-olds everywhere they go. Everywhere they go. Positively minded 14-year-olds, community-minded 14-year-olds, who are balanced emotionally, actually encourage this. They encourage it. They support it. Why? They need lackeys. Because 14 is a general. Is a god and is a general. And the 14-year-old needs lackeys. When I was 14 years old, I had a crew. And I had the little ones who did things that were appropriate for the little ones to do. And the ones that were a little bit older, they could do bigger things. And I could task them with other tasks. Okay, scouting. You know, that's a good one. Scouting. I needed scouts, apparently. Lookouts, scouts. Let me know if you see Mom's car. You know, things like that. Okay, and then we go. And then it just continues. Do you get it? You see where I'm going with this? And so the difference between each cycle, based on the age, okay, has to do with the level of maturity and a level of experience and a level of consciousness, which is unique to that period. Now, also, I want to show you this. If we're going to do this real quick in even less than 5 minutes. Somebody volunteer their age. Tell me their age.
37.
37.
24.
34.
34.
All right.
33. I'm about to turn 34. So 34.
37.
You do 34, it's well, her and I.
And that's another question though, because how are you calculating the year before they turn 1?
Have you ever noticed there's only girls in class that ask that? They want the little fudge factor, one way or the other. Little wiggle room, you know, little wiggle room. You know, you ask the guy, how old are you? You know, 35. You ask the girl, how old are you? And even if she wants to tell you, even if she's trying to tell you, it's like, 30, 45, 30, you're talking the first of the year, or what is, I was born after midnight, so technically, you know, it's only 33, and 4/8, 5/8, you know, plus leap year, it's a little younger, or it's after the solstice, it kind of catches up with me, and I'm not really happy about that, so.
34.
All right, close enough. All right, so I'm just saying, I'm not making it mean anything. It's just an observation, you know, that's all I'm saying. Okay, 34. Real quick, what I want to look at is I'm going to say she's what? 5, 6. So it's in the almost the end. Now see, this is important because almost the end, if you think of it like a mountain with 7 steps, that you're only 1 step from the top. And then you're over the hump onto the next cycle. So all the 6 and 7s are pretty much the avatars of that cycle. That's your highest self at that cycle. So you got some stuff working for you, okay? But it's the 5th chakra, which is communication and expression of being. And communication and expression of being happens and occurs with all the faculties. Depending on personality, depending on education, there may be more emphasis on one method of communication than another. There may be more emphasis, for example, on verbal communication. There may be more emphasis on art as artistic expression as a form of communication. It might be music, it might be dance, it might be poetry, it might be finesse and violence. Okay, it is, you know, it is what it is. It's a communication and expression of being, and there are no rules or no limits as to how that communication may happen. All right, that's the nature of this whole cycle, the whole early 30s thing, late 20s to middle 30s, communication and expression of being. Okay, what's the average age of the average major in a communication program in a major college in the United States today?
Today?
Yep, right now.
We talking undergrad?
Average age, could be, well, at this age, these are going to be undergrad and grad. These may be postgrad. Okay? Well, anyway, if you go to University of Ohio in Athens, Ohio, and you go to the communication department, if you add up all the undergrads and all the grads and average all of their ages, it's 25. Okay? So this mid-20s to early 30s, we are interested in communication. That's the age where everybody piles into political science classes. And for good, again, communication and expression. I want to learn how my world works, and I want to be able to communicate and express it. Okay. Just before, look at this. What's 5/5? Isn't this interesting? I always thought that was interesting. 33. Okay. So they say this is the time when Jesus was at the peak of his ministry. 3-year period, it's only 3 years. Buddha was 53, Jesus was only 3. But 33 is the year that he, quote unquote, gave the Sermon on the Mount. He was 33 years old. Okay? At the peak of what? Communication and expression of being, I am blah, blah, blah. Fill in the blanks. And I need you to know it. That's 5/5 if ever I heard it, in every possible variation. But it could have started over here, because remember I said there's a 3-year grace period? In other words, her 34 could have started early because she's, you know, what do they call it? Precocious. She's precocious, so her could have started earlier. After 34, okay, and then 35 going into what? This is the year of transformation, okay? Now, if I went right through your chart, I'd see that there's actually a part of your body that's associated with this age. With the chakra, there's a part of the body, a region, that correlates with 5th chakra. And there's a part that correlates with 6. And last year, this year, next year. Psychologically, I always look at 3 years because there's that much slack in the system. If nothing else, 33 is your history. 34 is the dominant influence now. 35 is what you're moving forward. You're still in communication, expression, and being, but you're looking to finesse what you know. You're looking to get it, to actually achieve something, to actually come to a point where you can say, I got it, in order to what? Do it. So as soon as we turn the corner, this 6th chakra comes in. Saturn rules 36 to 42, and 36 to 42 is doing who you are. See, up to this point, approximately, you've been learning who you are, and learning where you are, learning what you can do, and acquiring this and that to make it happen. But something changes right about here. As soon as we come on to this cycle here with Saturn, we're no longer primarily in the searching mode. At least you shouldn't be. If you're lost from 36 after, you're remedial. You missed a step somewhere along the way. And guess what? You have to go back and fix it. Whatever lesson you missed from whatever one of these cycles or ages, and you're over here and you're stunted or you're retrogressed, you have to go back and you have to fix it. All right, so do you guys understand how to read the chart? Now the key to learning it, to being able to use it, is you have to learn the chakra correlations. You've got to learn the meanings. You've got to learn the parts of the body that are associated with the different years. You've got to learn the chief attribute, positive and negative. You want to get an idea of what balances the chakra, and you go ahead. If I was going to counsel her, I would look not just at 34, but I'd actually go to 35. I'd go to 5th chakra first, then I would go to 7th chakra, okay? And I would write down the positive attributes of both of those, okay? And then I would tell her to cultivate those. Starting right now, and next year, this is what you need to do. Okay, this is what you need to do. So, for example, real quick, Audrey, look on 5th chakra, real quick, and see, actually 7th, 5th chakra, yeah, let's look at 5th chakra and find the positive and negative attributes. Actually, everybody help her so we can find this quick. Look at 5th chakra, find the positive and negative attributes, and tell me what they are.
Unity and adventure.
Unity and adventure.
Ego and destructiveness.
Ego and destructiveness. So here's what I would do. I would look at Audrey and I would say, is there any evidence that ego and destructiveness, what number?
26.
Number 26 on 5th chakra. So I'd look and I'd say, is there any evidence of the negative qualities happening in her life right now? Okay, one way or the other, we want to diminish those. Then I would look at the positive attributes for the next year. And then I would say, Audrey, what can we do to make your life more cohesive, more unified? In other words, exemplify the positive qualities that are going to be supported in the coming cycle. And let's do it now. Let's start now. Okay? And then that would be my counseling. Okay? All right, I wish we could take more time. Thank you very much for this presentation of Korosot Astrology. And if you want more, you'll just have to come back.